Switzerland's a crypto nation, but what about Singapore? What about Hong Kong? What about London? That's the topic of our next panel. They'll discuss global competition for a leading blockchain hub. Will Switzerland lead the way? As panelists, I'd like to welcome one by one on stage Jörg Gasser, State Secretary for International Finance at the Federal Department of Finance and the lead for the Blockchain and ICO Workgroup. Welcome, Jörg Gasser. Second, I'd like to welcome Rudi Noser, serial entrepreneur and member of the Swiss Council of State for the Canton of Zurich. Welcome, Rudi Noser. Our third speaker is Nicolas Bührer. He's the Managing Director of Digital Switzerland, the biggest public-private initiative of digital transformation in Switzerland. Welcome, Nicolas. Finally, I'd like to welcome our fourth panelist, Günther Debroux, partner at PwC and head legal. Welcome, Günther. And now the moderator's seat will go to the woman who successfully pushed for the first regulatory solution for Bitcoin custodian in Switzerland. You all know her. Please welcome Olga Feldmeier to the moderation seat. Enjoy.
Wow, what a panel. What a panel. Thank you so much, guys, for being here. I think we are all very fortunate to have you here. Just even your mere presence here at the blockchain conference is a statement itself. And that probably wouldn't be even possible several years ago. So thank you very much for joining. I would like to start a conversation with several questions. You know, when we speak about blockchain and about, you know, how this technology evolves and why this is happening in Switzerland, we bring in too many things into one pot. And maybe let's just separate it a little bit. Let's talk about blockchain and ICOs as two separate topics. So let's maybe start with the blockchain. Blockchain is basically one of the new leading technologies, among many others like artificial intelligence and so on and so on. So Switzerland, for many years now, has this leading role, being a really innovative leader in innovation in many rankings, right? And blockchain is basically just one of those technologies, right? So I would like to ask, maybe you, Rudi, first, let's start with you. How do you see this role of Switzerland as an innovation leader evolving over last years, and where are we heading?
I think, of course, everybody can make his mind off of this, but I think in the blockchain technology you have two things: decentralization, and you have in a lot of trust functions, and these are and value. And with these things, there are things we are in Switzerland goes very well in line with our culture. So we are interested in value, we're interested in trust, we are interested in decentralization solution. So I think a lot of Swiss people are very kind of get this technology known, and we don't like these very big fishes in the world, I think, in the end of the day. So it's something that is near to our culture. That's, I think, also why we are in the regulation part quite fast with these things, because we are used to work with decentralized things. That's my explanation. I don't say that's the right explanation.
Thank you very much. Nicolas, from your perspective, you're leading the efforts of Digital Switzerland. How do you see this evolving? Do you see more and more innovative companies coming to Switzerland? Is that like, what's the dynamic?
So what we see is a huge momentum, to be honest. I'm at Digital Switzerland since 2 years. Of course, we have many assets, many options to growth as a country with innovation, but for sure, that's the one right now. We have some others, robotics, AI, whatever. Let's stay on blockchain right now. What I see is quite impressive. Many companies from all over the world look here. I don't know, maybe half of the people here are Swiss. So it's really because I think we have the right conditions, we have now an ecosystem, we have a both, and we have a kind of Silicon Valley 40 years ago. Let's dream a bit. We want to replicate it for blockchain.
Is that possible? Will
We
we
will.
get there?
I mean, it's the beginning. I mean, if you will have asked the guys in the US 40 years ago, they were, and now they are raising, I don't know, 10 billions per year. And Switzerland, we raised last year 1 billion, almost venture capital, plus 800 millions, flew in ICOs, ITOs, almost 2 billions. It's only the beginning. I hope in 5 or 10 years, the ecosystem will be really huge.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And connected to that, Günther, you as a lawyer, can you explain us, what actually happened? Why all the ICO, all the companies came here? What is going on?
Well, I think one step back, the root of all of this, and again, just sitting here, you don't get that view, but it's just amazing to see a full room of people from all over the world, and I think 50% Swiss people. That is slightly optimistic. I would be surprised if it was more than 20%. I think this would have been unimaginable, but the core of it is technology, right? And it's the blockchain, and this goes back to the roots of Switzerland. We were always very tech savvy and so forth. Now, once you've done the tech part, and when you look into innovation theory, this is where it starts, innovation technology. If you want to make it stick, if you want to grow it, to have the innovation sort of transcend into the reality, you need money, you need infrastructure, you need other players to come to the equation. Now, when it comes to the funds being added to the technology development, obviously you need a framework that allows for that. When ICOs, which are obviously all the rage right now, started, this was a totally new concept. And you had to start out from a clean slate. And you still need some kind of rules to do that and some guidance. And in Switzerland, as you have said several times in your interviews and so forth, we have the great, great benefit of Switzerland being built around principles-based regulation and, basically allowing things and then have sort of consensus built around it as it evolves. And this allowed this entire thing to start. And it's still driving it, the technology competence, a technology ecosystem, plus a framework that allows us to build things before hitting walls and, creating problems. And this is really the combination of those things.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Well, if you look how big the thing became, I think about 6 billion was raised total capital in last year in initial coin offerings, and probably 1/3 of good ICO companies came here to Switzerland. They were domiciled there, they opened their foundations or any other form of companies. But it's interesting to know from perspective of from political or government perspective, is that a good thing that we are seeing there? What would you say? Is that something that you guys see and welcome as a new development?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's not by chance that the situation presents itself as it does. We are, as my colleagues just said, we are very receptive with regard to innovation. We are a tech nation as such. We have the best universities in Switzerland, amongst others, are located here in Switzerland, not only in the US, so we have the manpower. And we have within the administration some persons who are very, very tech-affine, and we are lucky that these persons are really in the driving seat in order to make that happen. Not only with regard to what you just said, but also with regard to our regulator, which plays a really decisive role in receiving those companies and give them the right advice in order to be able to establish themselves here in Switzerland. That's one issue. So the administration is very close to this development, not only in Bern on the central level, but also in the canton. Zug, for example, is such an example. Zurich is probably following. And they are very, very, very open for this kind of innovation, for this kind of technology, and we're highly welcoming this. We believe in order to remain at the edge of technology development, we need to be receptive for these new markets that are growing and that were seeded here in Switzerland. From that point of view, we are very positive with regard to the development that we are actually witnessing.
Mm-hmm. Great. And connected to that, Rudi, maybe you was one of the most vocal proponents of entrepreneurship and startups here in Switzerland. And we always had this conversation about the funding gap, that we don't have enough money to fund all those companies. All this money and all these opportunities coming in, what do you think what Switzerland can make out of it? How would you approach that?
I think first in the initial coin offering, we don't have this gap as far as I see it, because you raise a lot of money. In the normal startup community, we still have a gap, but I can say we work very hard to put the foundation in place that they will bring some money in the startup ecosystem with Digital Switzerland, with the federation and all this. So I'm quite optimistic that we will have something then in the next few months on this area, so that you can also make financial rounds, let me say, between 2 million and 20 million in Switzerland with real money, also with fiat money, not with
This is all real money.
we have some dispute normally on this with Swiss francs, let me say, with Swiss francs. But the initial coin offering, I think, works very well. There you don't have this value of death, also not in Switzerland, because you're in an international market. And I think that's very important for Switzerland. With this, we close a gap that we have in the real economy with the startup concept in Switzerland.
Yeah.
Maybe if I just might add something to this. What you are probably referring to is the fact that many of you have issues with regard to creating or establishing a relationship with a bank. And this is an issue. We need to address this. Initial coin offering is one point, and that seems to work quite well. But of course, you all need somehow, at least for the time being, bank accounts or a banking relationship. And this is an issue. And this is the reason why one of the reasons why we have established this ICO blockchain working group, in order to look into that issue, together with the sector, with the banking, traditional banking sector, with our financial regulator and us, in order to clarify these questions and see where the problem is. Because our main goal is not to build up barriers to entry, but rather to remove barriers to entry into this market. So this is the purpose of, if we start to regulate, it's rather because we need to answer some questions that you ask with regard to legal certainty and other issues, and also with regard to the fact that we would like to remove barriers to market entry. This is the prime goal with regard to the work that we are currently carrying out. It's not that we want to create a blockchain law or a blockchain regulation. We didn't create an email law or an internet law, and our regulation, as it has been said, is principle-based, and that will continue to be like that.
I think it's a very, very important point you're raising here. I think we have legal regulation and we have factual regulation created by the market. So right now we're still facing some technical issues. Like, we are working on numerous ICO projects right now for our clients, and we're facing issues like opening a bank account. So in the past weeks, we've basically been setting up companies by contributing cryptocurrencies for the foundation capital, just to get around the blocking accounts, things and so forth. So I believe it's important that all of the stakeholders are invited, that we do explain to people, that we take the fear away, and that our strong, our perceptive Swiss established financial services industry also comes to the table.
Yes. So maybe one more question to you, Nicholas. We say that today we have in Switzerland around, I guess, 300 blockchain startups. I try to really find out who are those people, but I don't know about them. So we counted and we met people, and it turned out, like, really here are about 20 to 25 companies. That's a big difference, right? What do you think, what needs to happen for those companies, not just to open, a domicile company and mailbox, but really come here and be here?
Of course, we don't want to be just a tax paradise country. We want the people to come here. I mean, we're talking about decentralized structure anyway, so I don't think people will always be on the same place anyway, anywhere in the world. But still, we want to be more people here. First things we need is regulations. I think we're on a very good way. The second one, we need more talents. More talents coming from ETH, EPFL, Rudy, as a politician working on it. Thank you very much. It's hard work. We need more money invested in our top technical universities. And the third one, I think we need a lucky punch, one or two. Remember Google, the biggest R&D research center outside of the US. So Google Maps, for example, is developed in Zurich. They started maybe 15 years ago. There are now 5,000 people, huge. And they are like magnets. from many other companies. And we need the same. We need a lucky punch, a big companies either coming here or a new Swiss-based company being huge. We need one or two of them. And the last point, we need to promote it all over the world. And I think we will have the success coming and more people coming here.
That's true.
Quick comment on this one. Statistics are perceptive, right? So yes, there is not the huge substance there already, but if you just look at the pipeline of ICO projects, of launches we're working on right now, we're seeing in the economy, you don't establish the entire substance before you have the money, right? So usually after the ICO they're coming, but almost all of the clients we're working with, and I guess it's true for all the colleagues in the industry, they start out with a little footprint here, but they have plans. If you look into their white papers, if you look into the business plans, to build up substance in Switzerland and then to couple it in a decentralized way with the other areas. So if you extrapolate, and by the way, I believe it's way more than 20, if you look at the new ecosystem map, which was recently launched, I believe it's closer to 100 probably, and they will scale up. So we have this great opportunity, as we've seen it in other industries, the Swiss watch industry and others, which came to Switzerland. We sometimes forget that, and then they flourished here. So this is what I'm looking at, and this is what I'm banking on.
I agree and disagree with you because, for me personally, I run a startup, right? And we need a lot of people we're building up, right? When you're looking for people, a lot of good developers, marketers, they are not here, right? They are in Kiev or Buenos Aires and so on, right? To get those people here, this is kind of like really one of more competitive advantages for, being a startup here. Rudy, how do you see that? Is there any hope inside that we will be able to open the opportunities for startup to grow beyond EU borders?
As you know, I'm also an entrepreneur, and I know it's a pain in the ass to get these people here, to get the permission, to get these people here, get to work. I always say two things. Of course, we fight in Bern strong to get more flexibility on it, and I think maybe we can say that in the area of the financial fintech startup, we maybe have now an agreement that we maybe get more flexibility. Also, at least of my last interpellation, I'm now willing is to make something like a motion out of it. But you have, be careful. It means in the parliament, a motion means 3 years waiting. That means the next 2 years will nothing happen. So this is one part. But there I say also another message, always very clear. You cannot vote 20 years for SVP and then be surprised when there is a situation like it is now. So please be open to the people. These are the few Swiss guys, I think. Please be open. We have to stay open for the people. We have a politic in our country who close the country, and even if there are knowledge brains, it stays closed. And I think if you go to Australia or Canada, they would look with big eyes what we really do. We do some very stupid things here in the country in the moment. But I think the basic is go to vote and vote for the right parties.
And what you can do also, apart from the fact that you need to vote for the right party, is do some lobbying in Parliament. This is not an issue that is due to the federal administration. We would like to open up the markets in order to attract talents. That's not something where we are in charge of, but it's the federal parliament that is in charge of. They are the ones who write, at the end of the day, they are the ones who write the laws, and they are the ones who have to agree on those regulations and rules or not. So from that point of view, what might be even on a faster track, well, next year we have federal elections, there you can do whatever you want to, but lobbying with regard to the fact that you need talents from abroad is something that will have an impact, and this needs to be done in order to change the situation.
What does it mean? How do we do that?
Well, you have to tell the parliamentarians who are against the fact that you would like to import more foreign labor that you need it in order to explain them what you do and why you don't find the talents here in Switzerland. The first question is always, and this is indeed a very justified question, why don't you just hire them in Switzerland? Because we have the technical universities here in Lausanne and in Zurich. Aren't there enough talents? And you need to explain them why there are not enough talents, or why we do not have the right talents. We have talents, but maybe it's not the talent pool that you require, and you need to explain them why you need them, why you need to have to recruit in Brazil or in China or wherever.
Yes.
This is what you need to do in order to change the situation.
If I might, because we're trying also to meet many people from the parliament. I think the blockchain is now the reason why it might maybe work. There is a concrete project, a concrete ecosystem growing. My experience with some guy from other parties is if you don't have concrete numbers, a reason, they will say no. And now there is really momentum, and I hope they will understand it, because it's about new jobs, and there is not enough, by far, not enough Swiss talented people to fill up these jobs. And the founders, you guys, if you don't hire the people within a few weeks and you need to wait a month, they will leave the country. So it's about more jobs at the end. And I think the blockchain is maybe one reason in the next week and month we have to fight with.
That's true.
100% agree. A very important topic. We need to work on it, but don't be afraid. Because again, we're thinking a bit old world, building factories and plants here or whatever, but we're talking the blockchain world. So I can only see to the third row, but what I'm seeing there is friends who are running exciting, great projects. They have people in Spain, in Scandinavia, in Switzerland. They're working together. They're moving people over here. Again, we're in a decentralized world. But if, as a country, we want to have the maximum benefit of that, obviously we need to be more open. But still, for creating those projects, talent attracts talent, and they will find ways to work together, and they also find ways to come in.
Exactly. So now we have a new dimension. Talent is important, but with a lot of those new business models in blockchain area, the most important breakthrough and hurdle today is actually about regulation, right? Because just to give you an example, whenever you touch cryptocurrency, even if your business model is not about cryptocurrencies as such, but you receive or you need to deal in cryptocurrencies, this is where you hit the first regulatory problems, right? And I would like to hear from you, Günther, as a legal professional, how do you see today the position of Switzerland having an advantage in this legal framework? How this compares with other neighboring countries or globally?
Yes, I'm a lawyer, but I actually have a useful side as well. That is, I come from innovation theory, and the one thing I learned is that any success, any market is built on the combination of factors and the creation of a dominant design. Typically, that's a dominant design around the technology, which is still evolving. We're not quite there. Now, once we meander into the financial space, there is a second element, and that is the regulatory dominant design coming together. If you don't have that, it doesn't work. Look at the Swiss fund space, right? We got wiped off the face of the planet as a fund production hub because we cannot participate in the harmonized EU market. Also, there's no material difference between a Swiss securities fund and a, say, Luxembourg or Liechtenstein UCITS fund. So if you don't have the regulatory dominant design match the technological one, you have a problem. Now, in this case, we got lucky because we got some players who were at the forefront of the creation of the technology, and we have a regulation that is actually matching and that allows this to flourish. Now we have to be realistic. This is a moving frontier. I believe we are in a very good trajectory by sticking, as you rightly said, to our principles-based regulation, by having a regulator, which, and I need to emphasize, that is not a light touch regulator. It's a strict regulator, but it's a regulator you can engage with and discuss with. Who has ever heard of a regulator who's doing a roadshow to explain to the industry what's going on with the ICO? And I always say the regulator is the business card of a location. So we have to give them credit. Now it's evolving. We need to watch what is going on in the world so we stay competitive. But mostly what we see is countries are moving towards creating enabling regulations. And we just launched a regulatory map on our webpage where we map all of the countries where they are going, and you see them move sort of from red to sort of yellow-orange. So they're being a bit cautious, but they're opening up. So we have to be watchful if new dominant regulatory design elements emerge, so we can incorporate them where we have. But otherwise, right now, I believe Switzerland is conceptually leading the charge, and other countries are looking at us and trying to adopt successful models from here. So my hope is we stay the course, we stick to our principles, and we lead the way globally. And as we see the successes, and we also see the mitigation of potential failures working in Switzerland, this will be a workable model.
That's true. And I think another advantage of Switzerland is that it's not a huge country as US with a lot of states and huge machinery that produced all the different rules. And even if you look, what happened on ICO space, right? There is a state in US, very small state, Wyoming, right? And they issued a very progressive bill on ICOs, right? And of course, the job is not done with this for US because they all now need to agree. It doesn't help you to have, this bill in one small state, right? And this is our advantage, that we probably can move a little bit more faster forward. And in that regard, Jörg, I would like to ask you, you created this working group, ICO and Blockchain Task Force, right? And you are one of the leaders of this group, jointly with Mark Bretson, I guess, from FINMA, right? What is your goal for this task force, and what you would like to achieve there? And also, what do you think, what needs to happen for us to really continue to be leading players in this field?
What needs to happen is quite simple. We need to ensure legal certainty within the community. This is something that is required by you, and this is something that we would like to see as well. Legal security, once you have it, you also mitigate reputational risks that arise from this new sector, which is quite logical. It's young. It's for the time being not regulated, which is very good, because we are able to observe in what direction it goes, and we can do the adjustments once they are needed. But what we need is legal certainty, and legal certainty is is one of the principal bases that you need in order to develop a market. And this legal certainty, or this question, has been raised by the sector itself. The sector approached us with many questions that need to be clarified, because your companies, they're about to grow. They want to do it right. We strongly believe that these fraudulent business models are not very common in Switzerland. So we are very convinced that everybody tries to do its best, and they need to know what they're allowed to do and what they are not allowed to do. For the time being, we were able, or FINMA, their financial regulator, was able to approach the issues on a case-by-case basis. But now the sector is too big. There are too many players in the sector, and we need to answer some principal questions like, how do you treat tokens? What do you do if you fail? And what about anti-money or money laundering issues? What about KYC? These kind of issues need to be answered, and they need to be answered not very quickly, but thoroughly. And we will take the time to do that. We will analyze the situation. We will exchange views with the sector, with the regulator, with the banks. We analyze the situation, bring up a report to the Federal Council towards the end of the year. And that's the point where we start to think about where do we have to adapt our regulation in order to provide this legal certainty. So there's nothing that will happen overnight. We are thorough. We are maybe not the fastest, but we are thorough. And we will do that together with the sector. So this working group will work together with the sector in order to get the expertise out of the sector, out of these companies that need to have this kind of stability.
Yes, that's true. And I think, it's great to have you guys here, and you are all very progressive people, and you certainly want to make this happen. But how about the rest of society, the rest of decision makers, all those people that need to support you to be able to bring around really new changes, right? Like, how many people in Switzerland even know what are cryptocurrencies or what are the great use cases of blockchain, right? And also probably on the political level, there are not too many people. Do you think you will have a really hard job convincing your colleagues to support you and to create this movement?
Well, the question is, how many colleagues do I need in order to do what we want to do? No, indeed. I mean, yes, I don't understand everything with regard to blockchain. Luckily, I have an astrophysicist within our state secretary, so he's able to explain me what exactly your guys are doing. So this is already an advantage. But I don't think it really needs to convince people that this is something that is useful and this is something that is within our genes of our society. We're very innovative, so everybody is open towards blockchain and towards ICOs and towards fintech in general. What needs to be explained is how we face and how we deal with the risks. We do not want to have fraudulent activities with Bitcoin or with ICOs where there is no substance behind it. This is something that we cannot afford. We do want to have our integrity of the financial marketplace in place, and we want to ensure this. So this is probably the most pressing issues where you need to explain what are the measures, what are the mitigating factors that can bring those risks away and those reputational risks, mitigate those reputational risks. This is what we have to explain. You don't need to explain technology, maybe the basics, but what you really need to infuse into the society is that this is something that has a future, it is something that is not illegal, it is not criminal, and it will not harm our reputation that we really have to maintain as it is.
Yes, but Rudy, what do you think? Will it work out? Like I remember last year, or when was it, 2016, as I was part of this Bitcoin company, we were, discussing, like, is that, holding of your private key and providing custody, is that already like, banking services, yes or no? And back then, Franz Grüter submitted a motion to the parliament suggesting that this activity should be taken out of this banking deposit-taking institution. And then the answer was no, this motion was voted down, right? Like, I want to understand, once we reach the position where we understand, so for ICOs to develop further, we need the relaxation of those and those rules, right? For example, in comparison to what we have, right? And once we go out to government and once there is a motion, maybe the next one about that, do you think the chances are high for us to get the broad support and to explain to society and politicians that, yes, this is crowdfunding coming through this technology is a great thing, and yes, let's support it. Is that like probable scenario, or will we struggle there? Your prediction.
You're asking me, or rather,
both of you.
Senator Noser maybe is more appropriate.
I think you have a good chance to explain this to the society here in Switzerland in an easy way. Also, I did a few tests on Twitter, how to explain blockchain. We need normal, simple word, and we need it in German. But when you explain to someone that you say internet is the way how you share information and blockchain is the way how you share value. Also, if you say this in German, I think my mother will understand what is in this sentence. And value is something that we are interested in Switzerland, and we will listen to you. If you explain it in a way where the Swiss people understand what you go to explain, then it's very easy to get interest, maybe to get a majority who is very interested in, because the middle education here in the country is very high. But when you explain it in a technical way, like I heard it a few weeks ago from a professor, then I'm not quite sure if you can convince more than your community. I think that's the question. Break it down easy. Look for some middle people who can make the translation, and then maybe it will work. So I'm sure that. And then you have, of course, another problem. I think a lot of the established financial big companies, they are not very amused about these upcoming things here. And for me, it was also a little bit surprising that all the supporters of this conference, no one of them belongs to the established financial community in the end of the day. There we have maybe also to close a gap. So I would also propose to you that you work together with the Bankiervereinigung in Switzerland and so on, very close way, so that you get one ecosystem in the financial market and not 3 or 4 or 5 different. I think that would also be very important to get a good broad support in the community in this. And the third point, you have also to understand you achieve already a lot. Also, at least you have a Secretary of State here on the stage. We have a working group. We have of federal level different working group. We have with FINMA a lot of discussion. Finally, we get an acceptance of this Bitcoin company here in Switzerland. We worked hard on it, but we get it. I think we achieved already a lot. We are world leaders in criticize our country, but on the other side, I think we achieve already a lot.
That's true. And we will continue on this path, right?
I think don't over-engineer it. We don't have to worry about convincing the population. For me, this is a déjà vu. I'm a kid of the 90s, and I started as a venture capitalist. And I remember when I had discussions with my father in the end 90s about the internet, right? And it was actually called PTX at the time. And he said, this is just about pornography, and nobody will use it other than 30 minds. And today, I believe everybody is clear. Did I just say pornography on stage? Sorry about that. It's just amongst here, right? No streaming here. No, but today it's in every aspect of our life, and I'm absolutely certain that the blockchain will grow into every aspect of our life, and society will just embrace it by seeing it. So we are not at the tipping point yet. We're in the early adopters phase, and by doing good things, by showing the benefits, we will win the trust and the hearts of society.
That's true. Please.
Now, if I might just, it's about convenience. So as soon as we have good applications, B2C maybe more, because right now it's a lot of B2B still. As soon as you have good applications and more convenience, they will love it. That's it.
So as a closing words, thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for your support and for all the great work that you're doing on different fronts, right? This is how we are growing as a crypto hub and receiving more and more importance and attention from all over the world, right? And you don't hear, but we hear it. All the companies in crypto space, they come to us, they're looking up to us with a big hope, right? And this is us here saying that, yes, the hope is there and we're moving forward and we're just getting started. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Olga.